All right, welcome back. We're now going to finish off our Grim Hollow trilogy with Where It All Started, the campaign guide. So I'm going to try and see if I can go through this book a little faster than I did with the others. I don't want this video to be an hour long, so I may only read a paragraph or two per section before moving on. There's not quite as much to go through in this book as in the others, but there's still a lot to get through, so let's start with some of this. Welcome to Erithus. Only a few warriors remain, defenders of humanity against the horrors of the dark. Their numbers dwindle with every new moon. You see, this world belongs to the darkness, and the darkness will not give it up easily. From the deep and the forbidden forests where horrible beasts lurk to the hulking and impenetrable mountain ranges where the lost lineages lie, the landscape of Erithus is formidable. However, the true monsters of this land can only be found in the degenerating cities of old, where humanity clings to survival. The world of Erithus is the official world of the Grim Hollow setting. Here, players will find Here, players will find few familiar and many unique tropes of the fantasy genre. The dark and the obscurity. Large swaths of Etharis are surrounded in darkness, supernatural and otherwise. In the far north, the sun is hidden for half of the year in a natural progression of the seasons. It is no surprise either that deep halls of the dwarves are plunged in darkness, for the darkness surrounding the lands of Otil is more sinister and magical in origin, and in the forests of the Charnutal Kingdom, the dense mists that cover the land is the work of benign spirits, or at least spirits that have bent to the wills of mortals, for good and evil. And the people of all these lands have adapted to the hostile environment. Punishing storms are frequent in this land, foreshadowed by howling winds and drenching rain. Where the sun never dries the ground, mud is a constant fact of life. The crops that grow are strange and bitter. For most people, there is no safety outside the radius of the torch's glow. The land is dangerous. Civilizations dot through the land as islands of light surrounded by the unforgiving terrain of shadowy forests through mountainscapes, sinking bogs. Travelers are often met with suspicious gaze by locals who have never left the isolation of their home village. Relentless threats assault humanity. Vicious creatures hunt wandering children and armed travelers alike, many of whom are never heard from again. Sinister forces seek to twist mankind's nature to their whims, leaving them forever changed. And the Lost Pantheon. In their never-ending struggle to control Etharis, the deities of the world fought what they could not defeat, and ultimately turned and destroyed each other. With but a few knowing this truth, many believe that the gods abandoned the forsaken world, or never existed in the first place. The only remnants of their reign are their surviving lieutenants, the Archserphin and Archdemons, and the forces they control. So basically, lost angels and lost demons. A sinking plague. Sickness and malnutrition are common and expected throughout the land of Etharis. However, there is one illness that is feared above all others. The weeping pox is widespread across the western coasts of the continent and frequently strikes harbors and coastal settlements. Distinguished by their deep red legions, it creates in the skin of the infected, and the disease is a death sentence for most. A few who can cure this plague guard their secret closely and exact a high price for their intervention. The price for deliverance, for those with the choice, may be a noble estate, service to the Archserphin of Mercy, or something far more precious. Fear of the arcane. Superstition and prejudice run deep. In most towns and villages of Etharis, magic is seen both as wondrous and frightening. Whether understood or not, the arcane is mistrusted and often blamed for problems ranging from the failure of a season's crop to the success of a rival's business. Many innocent people have been caught on the wrong end of this superstition. Well, basically, when you can have a guy who can have whirling magical effects from prestidigitation turn around and throw a fireball, yeah, I could definitely see that. But we also have glimmers of hope. Etharis is a campaign setting not meant to be relentlessly bleak and depressing, or to wallow in the cruelty for its own sake. Small victories become heroic when it is taken with heroic effort to achieve. No one in Etharis is safe by default, so any safety the characters win or give to others is a true blessing. No one in Etharis is good by default. Some moments of genuine grace are worth celebrating and can come from unexpected places. Amidst profound darkness, even the smallest light has value. So in this particular world, we have all your standard races. You have your humans, your elves, your dwarves, your half-orcs, half-elves, dragonborn, gnomes, and halflings. You could probably also weave in all of your other races if you find something you don't, if it's not one of your standard races. But let's actually get into some new mechanics in this one. In this world, we also have advanced weapons, such as black powder weaponry. We also have ones that have unique traits, such as brutal. Brutal weapons are designed to subject an adversary to the most harm. When you score a critical hit against an enemy with a brutal weapon, you can add an additional weapon die to the damage dealt. More damage is always good. Cumbersome weapons, basically, you must use strength on them. Good for people who have like 16 or 18 strength. Guard weapons basically give you the sentinel feat, but instead of doing damage, they just do the movement to 0. Momentum increases your damage die as long as you've moved 20 feet. Repeating weapons can fire multiple times before being needed to be reloaded. Swift weapons grant you, if you've missed, you grant yourself advantage for your second attack or for your next attack against the same target. Scatter weapons can, I think, attack multiple enemies in kind of a cone effect. We also have specialized ammunition, such as armor piercing, blessed, incendiary, and silvered. Those are relatively self-explanatory. And of course, we have new feats to go along with them. New feats such as lightning caster. Your rapid-fire style of casting cantrips allows you to weave magic in uncanny speed, granting you the following benefit. Whenever you cast a cantrip that can only target a single enemy, you can use a bonus action to target 2 enemies within 5 feet of one another instead. So basically, you can cast as long as they're standing next to each other. Thrown Weapon Master. You excel at throwing weapons and gain the following benefits. When you take an attack action to throw a weapon with the thrown property, you may immediately use a bonus action to make 2 more thrown attacks with a thrown weapon. They must also be thrown attacks. You can use this ability a number of times equal to your dexterity or strength modifier per short rest. If your thrown weapon is part of an attack, you may immediately draw another one-handed weapon as part of that attack. So I'm guessing the idea is to probably throw like multiple daggers, or I'm thinking multiple javelins. We also have hulking figure. You are a broad and formidable size of your race, either due to extensive training or a natural build. You count as one size larger to a maximum size of large. When you are determining your carry capacity, your weight you can push, pull, and lift. When you hit a creature with a melee attack using a strength modifier, you deal an additional 1d4. And you can attempt a charisma intimidate check against creatures who are smaller than you. You may add your strength modifier to the result. I know a lot of people really want to do strength intimidate, but I guess that kind of gives you the same effect. And now we have new spells. Holy Word. You mutter You mutter a word of the divine under your breath, being careful not to speak it any louder, for such celestial power is not for the tainted and unworthy. Make a ranged spell attack against your target. On a hit, deal 1d8 radiant damage. If your target is undead, fiend, or fey, their speed is reduced by 10 feet and cannot take reactions until their next turn. We also have Mirror Spell. You attempt to copy a spell and cast it as that you can. You attempt to copy and cast a spell that you can see being cast. If the target of the spell is second level or lower, you automatically copy it. Copying a spell of a third level or higher requires a successful ability check using your spellcasting ability. The DC is 10 plus the spell's level. On a success, the spell is copied, and you can cast the spell at the lowest level that it can be casted. You can also copy attacks of lesser spells or equal level to the spell slot used for Mirror Spell. You can choose new targets from the copied spell. The following rules must apply. You cannot copy your own spells. You can only copy spells cast by another creature. For all intended purposes, you are the original caster, and your spell casting modifier is required to be the same is true for the saving throws. So if you wanted to mirror a fireball. Fireball is a natural third level spell. You would have to roll a DC 13, which that should be relatively easy. But if you see somebody casting Charm Person, you would get an instant success. Oh, and this is also a reaction. Now, here's actually one unique mechanic in this particular game. Curses. Now, curses are basically a debilitating effect that your character can suffer over time. NPCs can anybody can cast curses, or any spell caster can cast curses, including your NPCs or enemies, as long as you have a material called Shadow Steel. Shadow Steel is a combination of metallurgy and indigenous sorcery. Due to the ability to hold dark magic, Shadow Steel is a required component for dark mages looking to cast curses. As each curse requires a component made of Shadow Steel, the availability of this resource can be tailored to your campaign, depending on how availability your GM wishes curses to be. So when you want to cast a curse, you would have a DC, depending on how familiar you are with the person. And then generally there needs to be some kind of trigger or a target why you are casting this curse on somebody. Is this person your sworn enemy? Did the person betray you or disgrace your home? And then there will be a triggering effect, something that starts the curse, and then it will continue on in stages. As your curse gets worse, it will eventually start to escalate. An escalation basically means every day you will have to roll a d20. And what is if every day the DC will also increase? So first day it is a DC 1, next day is a DC 2, next day is a DC 3, and keep going until you hit 20. Once you roll below that DC, it will advance to the next stage. And I think there are 4 stages. Yeah, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then its final stage, which basically has you generally mutate into a horrible monster, die instantly, and then become a monster under the GM's control, which really sucks. How do you cure a curse? To cure a curse, a cursed creature must be targeted with a remove curse spell. In addition, a number of cursed components are required equal to the number of stages their curse has escalated. For example, a curse that has escalated to stage 3 requires 3 cure components as well as the remove curse. The following items outlined are a number of cure components that can be found within the world. A hag's promise, a strand of hair from a lost but not found person, a twice murdered raven, a clock that runs backward, a black pearl harvested but a week ago, a book that has never been read, a rose that grows in darkness but not sunlight, a life willingly given. So some of these could be, for example, Curse of Damned Aging, casting time 1 hour, level 4 Necromancy Curse, range self. This requires a childhood possession of the target, a pint of blood, and a shadow steel stopwatch worth at least 1,000, all of which the spell will then consume. This spell curses the creature at the same plane of existence as you, with withering and horrific aging. A target must make a strength saving throw against the spell's DC, which is modified by the cursed table's strength. On a successful save, the target becomes aware that somebody's attempted to curse them. On a failed save, the target becomes cursed and is unaware of this. Upon completion of the curse's triggering effect, the curse automatically advances to stage 1. The triggering effect: the next time the creature changes their clothes, they find multiple wrinkles, gray hairs, and liver spots that they did not previously have. At a level 1, this particular cursed creature is compelled to rest when occasionally permitted, and becoming lethargic and lazy. So, not really that bad. Stage 2, the cursed becomes more feeble as their muscle mass begins to degenerate. The cursed creature has disadvantage on strength saving throws. Stage 3, the cursed creature starts to age rapidly, becoming decrepit. The cursed creature's strength score becomes 6, unless it is already lower. And then if you fail again, and you hit the 4th option, upon failing the final escalation check, the cursed creature twists into a deformed figure known as becomes a body snatcher. If the creature is the player character, they become an NPC under the GM's control. So, pretending that you roll every single success until you possibly couldn't, you would have 60 days to cure yourself of a curse, assuming that you rolled every single success until you got to the 20. Man, that would be terrible. Now, assuming most people will fail at least half of their checks, that means you've only got about 30 days, maybe even a little less. We'll say maybe close to 20. So if you get cursed, you gotta move it in order to cure yourself. Curse of Ill-Fated Fortune, which will turn you into a herald of calamity. Curse of Lost Sentiment, which makes you become a dream whisperer. And then they also have some newer mechanics on some of the previously established, such as concentration checks. Whenever you fail a concentration check, you become dazed. Dazed creatures, if you are concentrating on a spell and become dazed, you lose concentration on that spell and immediately fails. When dazed, you cannot concentrate on spells. There's also new bleeding options. Bleeding creatures cannot regain hit points from spells or abilities. A bleeding creature can only regain hit points by consuming hit dice or by completing a long rest. And then there are race proficiencies. And then transformations. This is another new mechanic to this series. So, for example, when we talked about the monster grimoire, one of the first creatures we talked about was something called an aberrant horror. Well, what if you wish to become one or have its abilities? Well, basically, it can move along as a progressional thing. So becoming an aberrant horror, each aberrant horror is defined by one key question: what happened to them? Some individuals make pacts with ancient entities for power that have unforeseen effects. Others awaken after being defeated by an unnatural monster, surprised that they have been spared, only to feel something writhing in their stomach. Many tropes of body horror can be inspired from the aberrant horror. So you must have a Constitution of 13. You have an encounter with aberration, magical anomaly, etc., etc. Transformation DLC or DCs. Level milestones. The following are examples of possible level milestones. So as certain things happen to you, you will become stronger or transform more. And then you have certain effects, such as Chitinous Shell, which increases your AC, Eldritch Limbs, You make attack rolls. You can choose what type of damage your unarmed strikes cause, such as piercing, bludgeoning, or slashing. You can roll a d6 on normal strikes. But one thing that generally happens as you transform into things, eventually you start to gain certain debuffs, we'll say. Generally, it's outlined by this chart. So with level 1, you gain your choice of a green, but then you also gain a red. And then as you level up, you will choose... All right, okay. Level 1, you gain both greens and the flaw. Then with this one, you gain one of these greens and the flaw. Choose another green and a flaw. Choose a green, and then the final flaw. One option that I think some people will really not like, because I know some... What if you wanted to become a lich? The same progress applies. So, for example, let's say you became a witch or a lich. Your transformation boon would be Harvester of Souls. You gain the ability to tear the soul out of a creature you have killed and consume it for invigorating effects. Whenever you reduce a creature's hit points to 0, if you are on the same plane of existence as your phylactery, the soul is captured and your phylactery becomes charged. On your turn, as an action, you can consume any number of charge levels from your phylactery and regain a single spell slot. When you regain a spell slot in this way, the spell slot's level is equal to 1/3 of the charge you consumed, rounded down. You also become undead. Your intelligence score increases by 4, and your wisdom increases by 2. The ability score cannot increase beyond 22. You become undead in addition to any other creature types you are, spells and spell effects that affect undead, blah, 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 blah. If a spell ability or others of your own would grant you hit points, you gain that many temporary hit points instead, and then flaw your phylactery. You've successfully torn your soul from your body and you've trapped it into a suitable object. The object must be a trinket or item no larger than 1 square foot in size. The item becomes your phylactery. A phylactery is an enhanced vessel of the lich's soul. Additionally, the phylactery is a conduit to a lich to feed upon captured souls. It has an armor class of 18, hit points of 90, no speed, damage immunities and damage resistances. If you wish to kill one, you have to go through that. And then when you become level 2, you gain some new benefits, such as either Puppet Master, Lichdom of the Arcane, or a Rift to the Dead, or Dreadscapes. But then you gain a flaw of hideous appearance, and it continues on as such. So if I was to ever implement Lichdom into a campaign, I'm definitely probably going to be using this system. Or what if you wish to become a lycanthrope, a werewolf? Same progress. Hybrid transformations or full shape-shifting. Lusts for the hunt, silver sensitivity. Or what if you wish to become basically a fallen angel? Or this world's version of angels. Or a vampire. This world's got a lot of vampires, so there's going to be a lot of them running around. And continue on with their various boons and flaws. Now, here's one thing that I actually really, really like about this book when I was looking through it earlier, is they have advanced backgrounds. Now, generally, backgrounds in typical D&D is, oh, here's some stuff about your character, here's some extra skills, here's a basic language, and a couple proficiencies. And most people just pick whatever is mechanically best for them and just move on from there. Here, your stuff will actually kind of level up with time. Your background is also kind of like your profession, your skills, your abilities. But as you continue on, you can kind of level it up and gain new abilities as you go. And not all of them are necessarily mechanical, but some of them are also story-based. So, for example, we have the academic. You gain skill proficiency. So skill proficiency, choose one of the knowledge skills, you gain a language, a couple pieces of equipment. Okay, so we'll say we start off as a museum scholar. You hold a few items. If you wish to progress, you must acquire a small collection of antiques, and a few pieces of knowledge. Afterwards, you then become an adept collector. And then you can become a senior professor, and then even a curator. Or what if you wish to become an academic reference and eventually become a scribe, a chief librarian, a grand lore master, or a physician, and kind of take on their traits or abilities. An aristocrat. So I actually really, really like their background system here. This goes into a lot more detail than the 5e book, than the typical 5e book does. There's so much stuff to read through. So like I said, I want to keep this video relatively short. We're just going to quickly pan through them all. But this is another system I would like to use in a future campaign. And then, again, as you level up, you basically gain talents, which is basically feats that are associated with your background. So if you took an academic, every time you leveled up, you could pick one of these talents and then gain its associating effect. Again, so many to read through. Now here we actually have the actual kingdoms, city-states, faction groups. If you want to know more about the actual world, here's all of your information you would have here. History, political leaderships, economy, even some pieces of lore. That's a really big picture. Ostian Empire. Ostian provinces. So yeah, we're going to continue to move through this quickly. Again, the art in this is still really good. I think there's not a single page that doesn't have a piece of art to it. Vikings. Yeah, it's just a lot of history. All right, here we go. Now we have the actual factions. The Company of Free Swords. If one needs a war won, a powerful monster removed, or a dirty job completed, the Company of Free Swords is the top mercenary group to call, assuming you have the coin. Despite the name, the company's services are far from free. The Watchers of the Fateful. After the loss of the gods, many of the good-aligned clerics rallied to the remaining arch-Sanfrins in order to hold the fabrics of their societies together. Throwing their faith behind the Sanfrins, the major churches reformed into a large organization known as the Watchers of the Fateful. Composed of priests and the paladins, the Watchers of the depicted themselves as preserving the old faith in this new form. And we have the actual pantheons. Oops. And the archdemons. Primordial. Here we have known or renowned characters. So if you're going to be making your own campaign in this world, might not be a bad idea to weave a couple of these characters in. This will kind of give you information on the character and even area where they're from and some information of probably where they're from and things they've done. GM's Guide to Dark Fantasy on how to run a potential grim dark kind of game. Creating a legendary character with their own legendary actions. Contraband items, diseases. Now, this part is actually, most of this book is not an actual full-on campaign, but here are some small little short stories that take place in this campaign to kind of get your feet wet, to see. You could easily probably run these as a one-shot or a little mini campaign and then spin it off into something much bigger. So this book generally comes, I think, with 3. We have The Tavern of the Lost, designed for 4 level 6 characters, complete with maps and objectives, descriptions of all the different characters and rooms. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. I think here's another one. The Facets of Darkness. Yeah. And then the final one, The Blood Knight and the 5 Relics. Again, the art in this book is really good. Okay, here's a page with no art, but I think the book clearly makes up for it. And now our monsters. Now, a lot of these monsters were also probably reprinted in the Monster Grimoire, but this is kind of where they all started off. Body Snatcher. Herald of Calamity. And then the final piece, all the backers who originally backed the Kickstarter, and all of their names. There's several pages of just thank yous of these people. Unfortunately, my name will not be in here. I did not back this originally. And an index. So you'd be surprised how many books don't have an index anymore. And then the open game license. So yeah, so that is the Grim Hollow campaign guide. Now, the entire point of this particular book is to kind of build your own campaign in the setting. If you wish to kind of have like a besieging town, kind of like a Seven Samurai-esque, but in a dark fantasy setting, you have all the material here you kind of need. Did you want to update or upgrade a Curse of Strahd game? What to do after Curse of Strahd? This would definitely be a lot of good material to use. Or do you just want to rip out certain mechanics, such as the transformations, the background systems, or even just the weapons? Yeah, it's all there. Definitely a book that, on its own, is good to have. It's definitely a good standalone book, but with the other 3 books, the whole series is definitely a really good piece to add to a D&D collection. But yeah, so that's it for this little trilogy series. We're going to be probably painting or assembling some more models within the next week or 2. And then we've got another book set to open that's just been sitting on my table for the last couple months. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. So thank you again for watching today. I do highly recommend the Grim Hollow series. There's probably various games on both Twitch and YouTube of people playing their own campaigns. I would suggest taking a look and see what you can find. But thank you again for watching, and take care now.